the clash with Spurs, Scott Parker said Burnley must give themselves a fighting chance.
Every game we play is an opportunity for us, and of course there's different dynamics of opponents you're playing against in terms of form or what they're in or what they're aiming. We're in the Premier League, and first and foremost you're playing against a hugely quality team. So
Vina, Johan, everyone is on the same page, and there's a lot of things going in the right direction. We just need to back it up even more, good performance and more.
Today, Tottenham have approached Liverpool about signing Andy Robertson. Lee, I'll come to you. Did you see that one coming? I mean, it's...
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Being quite honest. But then you look at his game time this season and you can probably understand why, can't you? I think it's key for players are at international level, and him being, one of them players that you feel that has to go and get game time, has to put himself in a situation where he is going to be amongst the World Cup. So it does probably make sense, and I think with Spurs the way things are at the moment, I think they have lacked that leadership quality throughout the team, throughout the squad.
Yeah.
And he ticks every box for them, really. So if this does happen, I think it's not a bad deal for Spurs, and probably not a bad deal for Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, would you kind of agree with that? Do you think Spurs have kind of lacked those voices, I guess, in the changing room?
I think Spurs need to do something positive for their fans. They needed to do some signings. I think that's a sound signing. I don't think it's like a signing that's going to, sort of stop the sort of moaning that's going on there about the performances, but he will improve them, I think. And I think for Liverpool, it's a strange one for Liverpool because there's a real transition period, isn't it, for that football club? And another champion. I mean, he was a champion last year.
Yeah,
he's out the door. So I think good for both clubs, really. I think it kind of works, as Lee said.
Moving on to the manager. I mean, do you think, looking at the team that he's obviously been working with, we know that he did great things and great work with Brentford. He was one of the longest surviving managers in the Premier League with Brentford. Is giving Thomas Frank time the answer, do you think, here?
I think so, because I think they've churned through so many managers at Tottenham, and they've had so many great managers. I mean, Conte, Mourinho, etc., and yet they've never really sort of stuck with anybody. I think Thomas Frank ticks a lot of boxes for me in terms of experience in the Premier League. I think he's good with the media. I think his playing style needs to adjust a little bit. Okay. I think when I went from Reading to West Ham, my team was Reading was more of a counter-attacking team, and I went to West Ham in the Championship. We had to dominate games, and we had to be, really forceful. And that was a different kind of mode for me to grow into. Yeah. And there was things I had to pick up as I went along the way. And I think that's where he's at. I mean, when you are at home and you're Tottenham, you've got to be on the front foot. You can't be sitting back and letting the opposition have possession so comfortably like some of the teams have had. So I would expect to see them improve at home. And I mean, when you look at their record, there is only one way for them, which is up, because that home record is really poor.
It's tough, and I mean where they're sitting in the league as well. But they do. It's a weird one with Spurs because they do have some fantastic talent on the pitch when you look at them as an 11. One in particular, Mickey van der Ven. There's going to be a lot of Spurs fans that are going to be worried about his future come the summer, right? Yeah,
of course. I mean, he's a fabulous player, isn't he? And I think anyone that's probably been your standout player, for the season. You always worried what could possibly happen, particularly when things aren't particularly going right on the pitch for Spurs at this moment in time. But yes, I mean, throughout the squad, they've got some really talented individuals. I think the fact of the matter is now, and I'll just go on what Alan said, with Thomas being at the helm there, is that they have to give him time. They have to give him the belief that he can put his hands on something and transform this Spurs squad around, because I think the difference is with him being at Brentford was that he wouldn't have had that pressure. He's gone into a football club that's all of a sudden he's jumped up the ladder into a football club that expects things and
it's a Champions League side.
Yeah, it is.
And also in his defence, I would say this: I think he had better offensive players at Brentford.
Yeah.
I mean, at Spurs, I mean, if I look at them, where do they really fall down? And it's flair and it's players with the ability to go round people and get crosses in. Kudos has been a great addition, but Solanke's still injured, Malis is still out. So I do feel for him a little bit in terms of his choices.
Just as a side, with the whole thing around the stadium is always been a problem, obviously, this season. You spoke about their home form. Alan, you as a manager, if you were facing that moment and you've got fans that are, they're not enjoying what they're seeing. They're kind of, even at the start of those games, you can feel that hesitation of wanting to even support the team, it feels like. Yeah. What would you be saying to the players, or how would you try and turn that atmosphere around?
Well, of course, I've had that. I've had it at West Ham at times, and certainly at Newcastle. You really just got to focus on the game plan and really kind of put all of that to one side. And they say park it somewhere, but emotionally, of course, the crowd is always going to play a part, and it doesn't matter what verbally you say or what practice you put on as a coach, as manager. It's still that environment that they've got to go out there and perform. And some will grow with it, some will crumble with it, and you have to try to pick and choose your players to make sure that they're big enough and bold enough to deal with criticism from the stands. If you get past it, Spurs got the victory this week in the Europa League. If you one good performance and suddenly it gets to the back burner.
I think that's the difference, isn't it? I think from a player's perspective as well, and you know yourself, Alan, is that I think when you are in a little bit of a rut, particularly being at home, where the expectation levels are there, you've got more fans, more home fans that are shouting and heckling and whatnot, is that I think that if you can't quite get that right, and it's all about having thick skin, really. I've been in situations when I've been at Villa and we've struggled, at home where we were on a bad run, and that bad pass, all of a sudden 2 bad passes and you're getting the moans and the groans. It's difficult, it really is, because not many players will put on a shirt and not try and give 100%.
Absolutely, and that's why, go ahead.
The reason I want to bring it up, because it's your team, Arsenal, right?
Yeah.
Obviously it can happen at half time even, because remember you was 4-0 up at St James's.
Yes, right? I remember that.
The place was rebellious. I mean, it was literally like, if we go out the second half and don't lift this, we are in big trouble.
And what was it that you said? I mean, obviously some unbelievable...
Well, there was lots of words being said, which I can't repeat on this show. But I do, my leaders in that team, Kevin Nolan, Joey Barton, and Chola Amiobi in particular, they changed the game. The senior players were big enough, strong enough to create a moment. We got back in the game and suddenly it all changed.
But do you think that's the key in bringing in someone like, I talk about Conor Gallagher, and I'm just thinking, what you're talking about saying, crumbled under that pressure. He's just been at Atleti for a season under Simeone, who's probably, giving him pelters if he misses a pass in training. And then you've got Andy Robertson again, who can kind of almost fit that mould.
Listen, you need big leaders in a team, that's for sure, particularly when things aren't particularly going your way. And that's where I think you're vocal in the change room. The players. I've been in changing rooms where, the likes of Gareth Southgate, for instance, captain, leader, and he would pick things out. If certain people, you dig people out in the change room. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need someone in that middle of the field who might make that challenge and just get everyone sort of on the front foot, get everyone revved up. And that's where I think sometimes we look at quality of teams, and not everyone's got these leaders. I mean, Manchester City might have the odd few, but there's a mixed bag of players throughout top teams, but you always find there's someone who stands out as having them leadership qualities, and that's, I think, where Spurs are really lacking.
I think there's also another point which sort of I thought featured in the Man United game at the weekend. Sometimes a young player can change, because they're kind of immune from it. They don't even understand it. They're just playing. Like Manu coming to that team for Manchester United, and I think, and that can happen. So, and I remember Mark Noble did it for me at West Ham. Sometimes a young player, they're just free of all that. They're just like going out. They can change it too.
I mean, they play Burnley away. I mean, it's almost a tough game to go into at this point. I mean, if they do lose, or if they drop points, I don't know, let's go with if they lose this game. I mean, how much pressure is there going to be then on the manager again, or do you think they've just got to ride this out?
I think they've got to ride it out. I really do. I think. Listen, you can't keep changing managers. I think, football fans want to see attractive football. They want to see, goals. They want to see winning matches. And let's be quite frank. Alan touched on the managers that they've had there. That you think would bring them success and bring them all these qualities. They haven't done it. Ange probably, bringing them a trophy, playing on the front foot. I think, you strip it back to even Ange, where he didn't have his best 11 to pick. He had to really dig deep and sacrifice that he wanted to win the trophy. And that's what they did. And then they flip it and they go for Thomas. You've got to stick with the process, where I think Thomas will bring them to the front when he's got. I mean, even they've got injuries at the moment. Spurs have. You know, you've got to understand is that this isn't a solution of keep chopping and changing managers, because it obviously isn't working for Spurs. For me, you stick with the process. If they lose to Burnley, I think. For me, you've got to get on with it. You've just got to keep going on with what they've got there.
Well, there you have it from some of the other managers in action in match week 23. It's time for predictions with Jermaine and Jules. You know the draw. I'm going to put you under the pressure. We'll start with the game that's kicking off match week 23. So West Ham against Sunderland. Where are you going with that?
Both teams, I don't know.
The full derby, that is. You can't say
there's a few derbies.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Sunderland 2-1.
Okay. Well, we know they've been well at home. How about you?
I said 1-1.
1-1?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Let's turn to Burnley against Tottenham. Jules?
I think Spurs will have to build on what they did in the Champions League in midweek, so I'll go for a 2-0 win for them.
Yeah, Tottenham have to win 2-0.
Tottenham have to win. You heard that, Thomas Frank. Another London team in action. Fulham, they're taking on Brighton. Jermaine?
I like Fulham at home. I think draw 1-1.
1-1.
I said a 2-1 win for Fulham.
For Fulham. Moving on, Manchester City, one of the title challengers, taking on bottom of the table Wolves. We heard Robertson say that they want to take advantage of City's poor form, but is that going to be the case according to you?
No, I don't think so. I think City would have way too much for Wolves. I think 3-0 City.
1 goal in 5 in the Premier League for Erling Haaland. That was a penalty, so he needs to wake up. I think they will wake up. They'll win 3-0.
Right, there you have it. Then Bournemouth, Liverpool, Jules?
Wow, that's a tricky one, I think. I think there'll be goals for both teams, and I still think that Liverpool probably have a bit too much confidence right now, so I'll go 2-1 for Liverpool.
Yeah, it's a 6-goal thriller.
2-1. I think Bournemouth will score, but 2-1.
Not as many goals this time, though.
No,
maybe not. And Brentford, Forest. Jermaine, I'll come to you first.
2-0 Brentford at home.
Yeah, I think Forest are struggling a little bit, as we saw in the Europa League as well. I'll go for Brentford as well, but just 1-0.
And then, of course, that London derby on Sunday. You've got Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner coming up against Liam Rosenior's Chelsea. Jules?
I think that's a really good one. I think Crystal Palace will have to react. I'll go for a draw 1-1 again.
Yeah,
I think Chelsea will just nick it. I think 2-1 Chelsea.
Okay. And then Newcastle against Aston Villa. Jermaine?
I think Newcastle win 2-1.
2-1. Of course, St James's Park, you already spoke about how tough a place it is.
Yeah.
And Villa have got a poor record there.
Yeah, I'll go for 3-2 just not to do the same, because I think there'll be goals.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, Newcastle win.
Okay. Of course, then the big clash between Arsenal, the league leaders, against an inspired Manchester United. How are you seeing this one go, Jules?
1-1 for me. I think United will have a good game plan in place. I think it'd be difficult for Arsenal, so I'll go for 1-1.
And then the final one, Everton Leeds.
I think a draw. I think 1-1.
And
Everton 1-0.
Oh, well, there you have it for your Friday team talks. It's been an absolute pleasure having Jermaine Defoe and Julien Laurent joining us in the studio.